right, so ready to dive in. Today, we're going deep into something a little different.
Different how?
Well, think neighborly relations, but during Hurricane Helene.
Yeah.
All those hilarious and sometimes kind of scary stories.
So like the dark side of community spirit.
Exactly. We've got news stories, firsthand accounts, even some, well, interesting advice.
Ooh, lay it on me.
Let's just say you might think twice about borrowing sugar from your neighbor after this. Especially if they're,
A what?
a handyman type with ideas.
Oh, I know that type. Okay, so where do we start?
Well, Newsweek had this story about Karen and Dane Corsi, visiting from Dallas. They booked an Airbnb.
Airbnb during a hurricane. Bold move.
Right. But it gets worse. They end up stuck no tower for 42 hours.
Oof, that's rough.
And there are supplies. A bag of rice cakes, some eggs, and one single sausage.
Sounds like a recipe for disaster, even without the hurricane.
Right. And the roads. Well, let's just say Mother Nature decided to re-landscape, down trees, sinkholes, the whole works.
So trapped with rice cakes and impending doom. Sounds fun.
Thankfully, a neighbor spotted them, led them out through some hidden back road.
Hitting, you say?
More like an obstacle course.
Sure.
They were dodging power lines. I mean, the whole thing sounds like a movie.
Wow. So what did they see?
Houses ripped apart, flooded grocery stores. It was wild. And get this.
What?
All that happened before the hurricane even hit their area.
Seriously? No kidding.
They even made a TikTok about escaping. It went viral, highlighting how bad things were in North Carolina.
Well, at least something good came out of it. Shows you how people can help, even in crazy situations.
Speaking of crazy situations, let's talk about James White.
Who's that?
Inside Edition covered him. His house in Hendersonville basically turned into a lifeboat.
A lifeboat.
Floodwaters, 5 feet high, furniture floating, pets panicking, the whole 9 yards.
Oh, wow. 5 feet. That's intense.
Yeah, but James, he didn't just sit there. He grabbed ropes, life jackets, turned his house into a rescue station.
Good for him. What a guy.
2 hours later, everyone's safe. Lost everything, but hey, they survived, right?
Definitely a silver lining there.
For sure. Shows you what people can do when it's, Okay, ready for a story that's heartwarming and terrifying?
Hit me with it.
So the Billy Graham Evangelistic Association, they shared this story about Ken Fisher. The guy basically redefined being a good neighbor.
How so?
Well, his neighbor, Lauren Carver, comes banging on his door, panicked. Landslide ripped off part of her house.
Oh, no.
Yeah, and her husband, David, he's missing in all of the debris.
Oh, my God. That's awful.
So what does Ken do? Walks right into that mess, mud, trees, everything, looking for David.
That's incredible. But a landslide, that's got to be, so dangerous.
It was, but he found David, trapped in a storm drain, pinned under a tree. I mean, talk about bad luck.
That's just, wow. So what happened?
David was hurt, but could still talk to Lauren. They prayed together, while Ken and others tried to get him out.
They just all came together like that.
They did. Worked for 5 hours to free him. It's a powerful story about community and faith during a crisis.
5 hours? That's amazing, but also so sad. What happened to David?
Sadly, he passed away the next day. It's a reminder that even when we try our best,
Sometimes it's not enough. Nature can be brutal.
Yeah, makes you think, doesn't it?
Definitely. Okay, so we've had escapes, rescues, tragedies. What's next?
Well, NPR took a look at the bigger picture. The long road to recovery for communities in North Carolina and Tennessee, especially those mountain towns, hit really hard.
Right, the aftermath. That's a whole other story, isn't it?
It is. And it's not just about government aid or big organizations. It's about everyday people stepping up.
Oh, yeah. Like what?
Like Tyler Venerable. 22-year-old guy used his forklift to clear debris for anyone who needed it.
A forklift? That's pretty resourceful.
Right. And there were these online groups, folks sharing supplies, even, get this,
What?
water for flushing toilets.
Yeah, wow. Desperate times, desperate measures, I guess.
Exactly. And then you have groups like Team Rubicon, veterans helping out. They cleared enough debris to fill, wait for it, over 1,000 dump trucks.
Seriously? That's insane.
That's the scale of this thing. But they're not just clearing debris, they're helping individual families rebuild too.
That's really important, that personal touch.
Absolutely. But NPR also pointed out something else, something we might not think about right away.
What's that?
The election, the upcoming election.
Oh, right. How does that tie in?
Think about it. Damaged infrastructure, people displaced, polling places messed up. That's a recipe for voting problems.
Yeah, you're right. especially in areas that could be crucial for the election results.
It's crazy how a natural disaster can have these ripple effects,
Yeah.
impacting things way beyond the immediate
It
damage.
definitely makes you think. Okay, but you promised some laughs, right?
Oh, I've forgotten. You ready for a story that sounds straight out of Florida?
Always ready for a Florida story. Lay it on me.
The Guardian covered this guy, Marty Thomas. Became a local hero, but not for the usual reasons.
Okay, I'm intrigued. How did he become a hero?
He used his surfboard to rescue people.
His surfboard, like surfing during a hurricane.
Yep. Rescued his neighbor, her brother, her sister-in-law, all while balancing on that surfboard.
Wow, that's impressive and kind of crazy.
And he didn't stop there. He rescued even more folks, including a giant St. Bernard.
A St. Bernard on a surfboard.
You can't make this stuff up. It's the perfect mix of heartwarming and hilarious,
Definitely a unique approach to disaster relief.
It shows you how people can get creative, resourceful, even funny in tough situations.
Makes you wonder, what would I do? Would I be the surfer, the hero?
Speaking of heroes and maybe not so heroic attempts at heroism, we've got one last story.
Okay, what is it?
This one comes from Lisa Collins. It's about her husband, Mike, and his plan to borrow power from the neighbor's generator.
Oh boy, I can already sense this is going to be good.
Oh, it is. Picture this. Dark and stormy night, wind howling. And Mike, armed with extension cords and overconfidence, decides he's an electrician.
That's a recipe for disaster if I ever heard one.
Oh, it was. He basically tried to outsmart the storm and physics at the same time.
So what happened? Did he get the power?
Let's just say there were sparks, a sputtering generator, and a whole lot of "I told you so" from Lisa afterwards.
Sounds about right. Sometimes the best intentions.
Yeah, they lead to the biggest messes. The moral of the story: leave electrical work to the pros, and maybe stock up on matches, just in case.
Good advice.
It's funny how some folks think they can just MacGyver their way through a hurricane.
Oh yeah, the I can fix it attitude. It's a classic.
But sometimes that can-do spirit needs a little reality check. Anyway, back to Ken.
Oh, right, the landslide guy.
Yeah, so he's wading through this, war zone of debris, and it hits you. This isn't some fallen bookshelf situation.
More like Mother Nature rearranging the furniture.
Exactly. And Ken finds David. But get this, he's stuck in a storm drain, pinned by a tree.
Are you serious? Talk about adding insult to injury.
Right. House gets wrecked, and then you end up in a ditch. It's like something out of not a very funny sitcom.
Definitely not a sitcom. So what happened? Could they get him out?
They did eventually, but it took 5 hours.
5 hours?
Yeah, 5 hours. Imagine that. A bunch of neighbors working together in the pouring rain to free this guy. It's kind of, inspiring in a way.
It is. It really is. But also so stressful. 5 hours. What about his wife, Lorraine?
She was there the whole time. They even prayed together while everyone else was digging and cutting. And it was a whole thing.
Wow. A real community effort.
It was. Sadly, though, David, he didn't make it. Passed away the next day.
That's just heartbreaking. After all that effort.
I know. It's a reminder that sometimes, even when everyone pulls together,
sometimes it's not enough.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's shift gears a bit from personal stories to, the bigger picture.
Okay, what do you mean?
Well, NPR did a whole piece on the aftermath of Helene, the long road to recovery,
Right, all the cleanup, the rebuilding, that's a huge task.
Huge. And it's not just about the government or like FEMA coming in.
Yeah.
It's about neighbors helping neighbors.
Really? Give me an example.
Okay, so there's this guy, Tyler Venerable. He's 22, and he used his forklift. And then there were these online groups popping up, people sharing supplies, information, even,
don't tell me, toilet paper.
close. Water for flushing toilets.
Ha ha ha, wow. That's resourceful, I guess.
Right. And then there's Team Rubicon. You ever heard of them?
Rings a bell, but go on.
So they're a veteran-led group, and they focus on disaster relief. And get this, they cleared enough debris to fill over 1,050 dump trucks.
1,000, seriously.
Yep, that's the scale we're talking about. But what I thought was really cool is that they're also helping individual families rebuild. Not just the big picture stuff.
That's great. Makes a difference knowing someone's got your back like that.
Totally. But NPR also pointed out something kind of interesting.
Oh, what's that?
The election,
Yeah.
the upcoming one.
Right, of course. But how does that tie into Hurricane Helene?
Well, think about it. Damaged roads, people displaced, polling places potentially messed up, that's going to make voting difficult.
Oh, yeah, you're right. And some of these areas could be really important for the election results.
Exactly. It just shows how something like a natural disaster, it has these ripple effects, impacts things we might not even think about right away.
That's a good point. It's not just about the immediate damage.
Nope. Okay, but enough serious stuff for a sec. You ready for that Florida story I promised?
Oh, yeah, hit me.
So, The Guardian covered this guy, Marty Thomas. He lives in Indian Rocks Beach, Florida. And during the hurricane, he became a bit of a local legend.
Okay, how so? What do you do?
He rescued people.
Okay, that's heroic, but not exactly unique during a disaster.
True, but get this. He rescued them using his surfboard.
His surfboard? Was he, like, surfing in the hurricane?
He was. Rescued his neighbor, her brother, and sister-in-law,
Mm.
all while balancing on that surfboard.
Wow. That takes some skill and some guts.
Right. But he didn't stop there. He kept going, rescuing even more people. It's the kind of story that makes you laugh, but also makes you think, wow, people are amazing.
It's a good reminder that even in the midst of chaos, there's room for, a little bit of whimsy.
Exactly. And speaking of whimsy, and maybe a little bit of questionable judgment, we've got one last story.
All right, lay it on me.
This one comes from Lisa Collins. She shared this story about her husband, Mike, and his, shall we say, ambitious plan to borrow power from the neighbor's generator.
Uh-oh. I can already sense this isn't going to end well.
It does not. So picture this. Dark and stormy night, wind howling, rain coming down sideways. And Mike, armed with a jumble of extension cords and a toolbox full of misplaced confidence.
Yeah, I've met that guy. What happened?
Well, he sets out on his mission, convinced he can, outsmart the laws of physics and the hurricane at the same time.
Oh, boy. The I can fix anything mentality.
In a nutshell. And as you can probably guess, things go wrong. Hilariously wrong.
Sparks flying.
Sparks flying, the generator sputtering, and Mike standing there, surrounded by a tangled mess of extension cords, looking like he just got zapped himself.
So, did he get the power?
Nope. He managed to short-circuit the neighbor's generator, leaving everyone in the dark with a fridge full of rapidly warming food.
Oh, man, I bet Lisa had some choice words for him after that.
I can only imagine. It's just a good reminder that sometimes the best help is knowing when to ask for it, or at the very least, to leave electrical work to the professionals.
Word. So what have we learned from all these crazy hurricane tales?
Well, besides the fact that rice cakes seem to be the official snack of disaster preparedness,
Right. Who knew?
I think it shows the incredible range of human behavior that comes out during these kinds of situations.
The good, the bad, and just plain weird.
Exactly. You've got people like Ken risking their own safety to help others. Then you've got Tyler with his forklift, the online communities sharing toilet flushing tips, and of course Marty, the surfing superhero.
Don't forget Mike and his electrifying adventure.
Oh yeah, Mike. He's in a category all his own. But even with all the craziness, the mishaps, and the occasional questionable decision-making, it's heartwarming to see that sense of community shine through.
It really is. People coming together, helping each other out, finding ways to laugh, even when things are tough. It gives you hope, you know?
It does. So as we wrap up this deep dive into the wild world of neighborly relations during Hurricane Helene, we want to leave you with this.
What's that?
What's your disaster personality? Are you the calm and collected helper, the resourceful MacGyver type, or maybe, just maybe, the one who accidentally makes things a little more chaotic?
Whatever your style, remember, a little preparation, a good sense of humor, and maybe a healthy dose of caution when it comes to DIY electrical projects can go a long way.
Words of wisdom right there. And don't forget to check out the show notes for links to all the stories we covered, plus some resources if you'd like to help those impacted by Hurricane Helene.
Stay safe out there, folks. And remember, sometimes the best neighborly act is simply staying out of each other's way and maybe hiding the toolbox.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep.